Thank you. Thank you, Sari, and good to be here. My name is Tom Kerr. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Eco Action team at the church. And so we are here, we're doing a lot at the church. There's a lot of really interesting activities in terms of ways we're trying to integrate spirituality and environmentalism, sort of on the personal level, also greening the church and its footprint in terms of energy and the garden and things like that. And then we're doing it, you probably come to some of our activities where we've done, we did the Lenten Pledge, and we've had the Eco Action Fair roughly every Earth Day, where we brought in the community and we've tried to talk about how can you, in your own lives, reduce your footprint on the earth. So there's a sort of 3 pillars of activities, but today we're really gonna hone in a little bit more on the personal, I think, and we wanted to talk, why do we do this? It's not so much what we do, although we will talk about what we do. I think what's the motivation? Why are we all here in terms of this team? And all of us have been passionately doing this both in our professional and personal lives, but also within the church. And so we have a series of team members that are going to come and talk about what they're doing and why they do it. And we want to make this interactive. If anybody has questions, we can do it that way as well. But we're going to go through a series of folks that are going to kind of talk about their personal journey or their personal motivation, and then open it up. So I'm just fixing the slides 1 second. I will, but I'd like to call on Lydia Liu to go first. She's a member of the team who is doing some really interesting things, I believe, in her garden. So Lydia, I will invite you to come up. Let me just get the slides while you do that.
Do I stand next to you?
You can stand, yeah. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. And here you go. Now, technology check, can people see my slides? Excellent, and there's the slide to show. Oh, there we go.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everybody. My name is Lydia Liu. I'm part of the Eco Action team. I joined in, I think, okay. I joined 2018, I think at one of the Eco Action outreach team, I met Tom, and so I became member since then. I participated in the 2020 and 2021 Lent Pledge, and in both, at both times, I learned a great deal by, in the beginning, reading about the facts on the different pledge themes. And then the second time, in the past 2021, I compiled some facts to support pledges, and also write a crossroad article to promote the campaign. And this is has been a great, wonderful experience. I learned so much, and some of them, the pledges, has become a habit. For example, I learned not do online shopping. I still do sometime, but very limited, very consciously. So all those, eating less meat, to reach out to find out the vegetarian recipe, to make vegetarian recipe part of my diet. All those help me to learn, and also make me to see the impact, even as an individual, very limitedly. We can still contribute what we can do to help the environment. So that's my journey with the Eco team. I also want to share a personal journey that I undertook for my commitment as, also Eco Action team commitment to walk gently on earth and taking care of God's creation. So this is my conservation landscaping project. Some of you might have known the Montgomery County has a Rainscape program where the county provides rebate to support residents, the county residents to install conservation features on their landscape. For example, rain barrels and rain gardens, And the one I took is conservation landscaping, which I became interested because of our neighborhood has an outreach program from Ringscape program. And I did a lot of research and talked to a lot of contractors, landscape professionals, and did some design myself. So, I don't know. So this is what I want to show. This is a diagram that first of all, I hired a contractor to do some hardscape because my property sitting a little low from the neighborhood. Two neighbors out there, rainstorm water always come to our yard. So in order to successfully for the landscaping, I have to do some hardscape to intersect the storm water runoff. So build some retaining wall, some dry creek, and then regrade the land, and also I researched about different native plants. So that's what I sent out for application, and I was very happy it got accepted. So I have different plants. I'm going to the second. So, yeah. So this is what it looked like before the installation. This is I think in June or in March. So I have this place that I sent out for the county, and they asked me to measure basically how much the planting area are, and then based on the planting area and the plants I send in for plan. They calculate a rebate area. For conservation landscaping, I think the rebate is $5 or $6 per square feet. So I send in the planting plan and also the diagram and the calculation. So I also removed some invasive species plants for my property. So they are like barberry, and there are also some porcelain berries. Those. So that's what the landscaping before the installation. And after a long wait and a lot of process of find a landscaper to install, and finally I got it installed in September, late September. As you know, I mean, this year because of the pandemic, the contractor are really, they are very busy. So I'm just so happy to find somebody to do the work. And that's the project. So I installed the plants, different bushes, including spice bush, which I actually found behind in the park, behind my neighborhood, in the woods. Spice bush, sweet pepper bush, you won't be able to see clearly, but they are there. So those plants, they support different insects. So provide not only food, but also habitat for the food, for the insects. And there's a Virginia spear, Virginia sweet spear, I think that's the name, and different ferns. So the benefits, the last slide is about the benefits of the native plants. They support our local native ecological system. They control soil erosion, and they provide food and habitat for our native plants, especially in the current environment. We have a declining population of insects, and they are vital for our system, for our ecological system. So I'm happy to share my experience if anybody is interested to do any of those, apply for a Ringscape program. And I'm also help to help with Jane's native landscaping projects for the church. Yeah, so that's my experience. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lydia. And it's great to actually didn't realize that this motivation was the Lenten pledge. So that's terrific that we caused that. And it's really great to, kind of see the reality of it come to life from the drawings actually to the plantings. It looks beautiful. And then to link it to the larger environmental benefits. So that's fantastic and really inspiring. I'm going to switch now to energy if Tim Dobbin doesn't mind going next, if that's okay. And we can kind of come back to gardens with Jane and Lizzie. So Tim, I will bring it over to you now. And you don't have slides, is that right? No slides, okay.
How's that? Can people hear me? Great. So I've become the lighting nut around here, but when I arrived in this country as an adult, I was treated, in the late 1980s I was treated to Eucharistic Prayer C, I think the very first church service I went to, and its poignant words, "This fragile earth, our island home." Those words were penned in 1974 by Howard Galley, a layman and assistant to the coordinator for prayer book revision. And I greatly admire his economy of words to convey a big idea. And its sheer poetry, like much of the prayer book, it's really in keeping with that tradition, a treasure of our Anglican heritage. His motivations, 5 years earlier in 1969, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin had set foot on the moon, allowing all humanity to see that we live on a small blue world set in the infinite reaches of space and time. Now, I was already receptive to this message of caring for all creation. My mother had a compost pit well before any neighbours knew what compost was or were bothering with that sort of thing. And we used to travel a lot for our vacations to the country where my father was born, or up to Brisbane from Sydney. And one of the family's pet hatreds was roadside litter. And I had a rather cantankerous grandfather who often would say to me, "Tim, man is the only animal that fouls its own nest." That's pretty much right. But anyway, on hearing those words, "this fragile earth, our island home," for the first time I thought, wow, these Episcopalians are cool. And when I arrived at St. John's 15 years ago, the work had already started on saving energy, money, and the environment. Jane Houlihan, John Mertens, John Gallivan, and others had gotten things rolling with an energy audit. Some insulation improvements and some basement windows had been replaced. I just kept the ball rolling. And one of the things you'll soon realise about St. John's, if you don't already, if you stick your head up above the parapet and volunteer for something, you'll be given great freedom to work away as hard as you like. And LED lights were becoming cheaper and more available. And I realised the biggest bang for the buck could be had through lighting because of the rapid payback. And although I was doing some of this at home, I realised St. John's was this bigger playing field on which a much bigger benefit could be had, reducing energy use and carbon output. And we had many incremental gains, but also some big victories, like the parish hall, where 17-watt light bulbs purchased at Home Depot for just $3 each, equivalent to 100-watt output. Take out the silly bottom reflectors, which I don't really know what they were meant to do. Those replaced bulbs that were burning 150 watts. And that project paid for itself in just 2 months. And every time we turn the lights on in there, we're saving on what we used to spend. And this has continued. And recently, I joined the Eco Action team as a sort of official member. I'd been working in stealth, I'd like to say, on the property committee, advocating for a lot of these changes. But we did a project analysing our electrical use, and I'm sure Tom will get much more into this. And I was sort of disappointed to see that our electrical use was constant. I'm like, what is going on here? And then I realised over the years we have installed more and more heat pumps in the place, you know, units that can both cool in summer and warm in winter. And that's become really important in the basement where our underfloor hot water heating is starting to fail. So it puts us in a good place. But I was still like, yeah, we're using less gas, but we're using more electricity. But then I thought, well, hang on, you can get clean electricity now. It's becoming cleaner. So actually, that's sort of where they say we're heading. You know, it'll be the all-electric home. And so I don't want to spend too much time when there's other news to impart, but we're continuing to upgrade lights. In the basement, there were many U-shaped fluorescents, which are now being replaced with this LED version. Unfortunately, this is a little expensive. The payback is in just under 2 years, not too bad. But these and the 4-foot LED replacement fluorescents, they use 50% of a regular fluorescent. That's fantastic. Now, that wasn't true 10 years ago when I think the company came by and said, oh, we could replace all of them for you. It really didn't quite seem worth it. Also, the light output wasn't as great as a regular fluorescent, so the school had concerns about how it would look. Both of these, if you know anything about lighting colour, they're 4,000 Kelvin, which is a bit of a bright shock compared to what we're used to with incandescents. But I actually think the way we're decorating our homes now and office spaces, this 4,000 doesn't seem so bad anymore. It used to look shocking. 5,000 I wouldn't go near except for exterior lighting. So we've got that going on still, and we have new windows coming for the remainder of the basement, windows we haven't touched, and the church offices are going to get new double pane vinyl windows probably next month. And they'll be usable too, which allows people to make good choices about, hey, it's nice outside, I'd like fresh air, and it's also good with COVID too. I'd just like to put in a plug that if we make future changes, substantial changes to the building, we should ensure those renovations are green. We should think about how we're going to heat and cool the space. But there's lots of news on the electrical front to come, and also exciting garden changes. So thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot, Tim, to our stealth member. It's great to have you more of a formal member now, and I think I remember digging through the boxes in the basement to look at those old bills, and you know, I think to me is we have to tackle the school as well. The school seems to be using a lot of energy with various products and appliances. So, but thanks so much for all the work you're doing. And then also, I think just a tip to everybody, I hope you've inspired people that heard those cost savings. That it's also about saving the environment, but you can save a lot of money with these LEDs, especially now. So that's great news. So I'm gonna switch now to Jane and Lizzie. We're gonna, I think, Jane, this is your first slide, is this right? Okay, so I'll hand it over to you.
Oh, got it, okay. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Jane Houlihan. I'm happy to see everyone. I've been on the Eco Action team for a number of years now. We started, as Tim said, by doing some work to upgrade the energy efficiency in the building. And then Tom moved back, I think, from Paris, joined the church, and kind of re-energized us as the Eco Action team. So we've been doing so many fun projects. My motivation for this work started so early in life. I remember being at a women's retreat at St. John's a few years back, and the facilitator asked us a question: when do you feel closest to God? And almost everyone at the retreat said, when I'm outside in nature. and enjoying the outdoors. And I have the same feeling, and my entire life, I just get so much joy from hiking and backpacking and all the things that luckily my husband loves to do too. So it's a big motivator for me to have a spiritual connection with nature. There's a freedom that happens there and a connection that I only get maybe with music too. Those are too close. Things near and dear to my heart, but super important to me. But when I had kids, had a bigger transformational event. So Megan was 8 weeks old, my first child, and Mike and I were trying to pretend like our lives weren't going to change. So we went to the Bahamas for a vacation before I went back to work. And that was a mistake, by the way, with an 8-week-old. But when we got back at midnight to our home, and we both had to go to work and daycare and everything the next day, there was a note on our door that our landlord had sprayed the house with chlorpyrifos. Well, Mike and I are both environmental engineers, and this is a neurotoxic chemical, really damaging early in life, and he'd done it, of course, when we were gone. It's midnight, right? We're walking in with our new baby. We stayed up for hours, washing every item in the home, clearing out Megan's nursery, we had no idea where the spray was, and so for me, this was a big wake-up call. I'd been doing consulting work for the chemical industry, cleaning up, properties, restoring properties that were contaminated. And when I got back to work that week, I began my transition to the nonprofit world and just wanting to have a more mission-oriented approach where I could really help restore God's creation in a meaningful way. So I've been in the nonprofit world for a long time, and my work at St. John's has been an important part of my personal kind of commitment to creation and the planet. So I just want to share with you some super exciting work we're doing around, among the many things we're doing. This is around native plants. So one thing we know about the environment is that, we're rapidly damaging our ecosystems. And, when you think about the fact that since I started college, we've lost 3 billion birds and half of all insect life is the estimates. One thing that motivates my work is that each of us can play a very active role in helping to restore some of that creation and bring back the vibrancy and the diversity and the abundance that we need. And so we are doing that in part through our work in native plants. And there are 40 million acres of lawn in the US. And if each of us just converted a little bit of our lawn, we'd go a long way toward creating some new patches of ground that can help birds, bees, and butterflies. And a lot of that work now is happening at St. John's, which I'm super excited about. So this spring we hosted a native plant sale, and we sold 500 native flowers, shrubs, and trees, which is super exciting. This is me and Jay Everhart at the plant. I know at the plant sale, and a number of parishioners participated in that and bought milkweed and asters and sweet pepperbush and all kinds of things. So already we're starting to make our yards more vibrant. And this is a plan view of St. John's, and just so you're oriented, this is Wisconsin Avenue, and this is Bradley. So this is kind of the front door of the church that very few of us use, and we're all sitting right here. In our native plant work at St. John's, step one was to bring in the Audubon Naturalist Society to give us a garden coaching session. So we walked the property with them for 2 hours, and this is a little map they made of different garden areas that they advised us on, and they gave us kind of a preliminary plan of things we could do on our property to replace some of the invasive plants we have and to restore some of the native plants. So that was step one. So step two is we went to the property committee and we said, look at what we have, what of this could we do? Which areas would work? Which areas might be impacted by upcoming capital campaign stuff? And they said, well, some of this stuff maybe will be impacted in the future by some of the plans we have, so don't focus there, but this is a really great corner to focus on. It's highly visible, right at the intersection of Wisconsin and Bradley. There's a lot of foot traffic, there's a lot of car traffic, there's a bus stop. What if we put a native plant garden there and really used it as an outreach tool so a lot of other people can see what we've done. So that's where we're focusing our work. We did step 3 next, which was to work with the Audubon to find a contractor that could design this garden for us. And we've brought on board Susie Altman, this fabulous native plant specialist and designer, and signed a contract with her. She will give us a design in December. And then in the spring, we're hoping everyone in this room will come for a planting day when we're going to start installing some of these really exciting and wonderful plants, and hoping to bring back lots of birds and monarchs and insects and vibrancy to our little corner of Bethesda Chevy Chase. One other thing we're super excited about is the potential to use signage in this garden, since there's so much visibility, and having little, even QR codes where people can scan, oh, what's this plant? You know, can I put this in my garden? Swap those signs around seasonally, depending on what's blooming. So all that is coming up, super exciting. And this is another church, but this is, you know, kind of a vision of what it could look like, super colorful, super vibrant, and just really a great educational and outreach tool for us to help other people do their part to restore God's creation. So this is all actually made possible by Lizzie, who's given a generous grant to St. John's to help fund this garden. And she has an amazing vision for it. And I just want to pass the baton to Lizzie, if I could, to share more.
So I just feel like I'm in such the right place with all these people that I never even knew were so involved. And this is just remarkable. And so I just wanted to share with you a little bit about what, how I came to this project and how I put some money aside so that we could do this project at St. John's. And I've been just like, do what? Do what? Pointed. Oh. Okay, got it. No, I don't like this anyway. So, so I was influenced by all that has been going on in our environment, and the reports and the devastation of our birds and our pollinators, and it just kept making me crazy. And so I thought, well, maybe what I could do is just begin this process in my own backyard. So I thought, well, I'll just plant a little bee balm, and I'll plant a little bit of milkweed, and I'll plant a little bit of, you know, whatever, to get the birds to come back and the bees. And I was just astounded in one summer what one person could do. I get choked up about this, I'm sorry. And so that's when I decided that maybe I could put some money aside and we could do a bigger project with all of you at St. John's. And so that's where we are right now. And as Jane has so well described, we're working with Wood and Nature Society, and we're just dovetailing right behind them because they've done such a beautiful job, and we are learning from them, so we're not reinventing the wheel. And they've come here, and with the great wave of the arm, well, you could take this down, and you could do this, and you could do that, and that's what we want. And that is what we want people to see the church, and we want our church to learn from what we do. So the project has begun. We're going to be doing the planting in the spring, and hopefully by then you'll all be involved to help us with your shovels and your diggers and your boots. And I just think that the big thing is that you'll learn about what to do, and you'll take this home, and you'll do it in your own backyard, just like you did. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lizzie and Jane. I think the theme you're starting to hear is this sort of hope. I think it's all, and hope comes from empowerment and feeling like you can do something in your own daily life. And I think that's what we've seen, all these great examples, and I think it's inspiring, and these great personal stories. So thank you so much for that. And we're really excited, and definitely pay attention to the Crossroads as we advertise the planting that'll happen in the spring, because it's going to be coming up very soon. And another native plant sale. Excellent. So, all right, so I'm going to go quickly. Carolyn Pierce couldn't be with us, but she wanted to share some words about how she is getting involved with the Eco Action team, and I think highlighting the Lenten pledge that we've done for 2 years now. And I think in particular, one thing that she really spearheaded this last year was we decided, I don't know if those of you that participated in the pledge, this year for the first time, we had people do a voluntary donation if you wanted to, because we wanted to make sure we linked to environmental justice as an offshoot of what we're doing. It's, we want to do what we can in our own community, but we also wanted to affect other communities. And so we got a really good chunk of change, actually, and so it was very nice. And we used that money to donate to 2 different civil society or nonprofit groups in the DC area, and one of which was Ward 8 Woods. And I thought, yeah, here we go. So she took some great pictures. A bunch of us from the team went and did a trash cleanup at the Ward 8 Woods Conservancy. There was a park there that really was overrun with trash, and it was just too bad. And the way it was designed, too, was not very inviting. You just kind of walk by it, and then once you cleared away the trash, you could see a path through, and all of us spent a really good half day there cleaning up. And you can see Melanie and her husband Rick, and me and my wife Carol, and Earl, and Carolyn, and Kathy. So that was a really great project that Carolyn did, and I think she was terrific to have her lead that, and this is the kind of thing we're going to be doing some more of in this coming year. So then finally, I will turn to my own personal story. So mine also is kind of this, it's really about the personal motivation, and Jane talked about when she was a child. So I've thought a lot about why I'm an environmentalist, and I think it came down to when I was young. I was born in a very sort of new suburban development outside of Detroit, and it was like tiny little trees, like in a ranch house. And then when I was 5 or 6, we moved to a beautiful neighborhood that had a river in the backyard with a big hill in the backyard and a forest. It became my playland. And it was just, and I read something once by a really interesting, I think a child psychologist, that when we're young, we're like lanterns. So we walk around and we're kind of paying attention to everything, and we shine light on things. And everybody's seen a toddler, like they're looking at everything, and everything could possibly be very fascinating. And their attention is everywhere. They're focusing. And in that woods, that's what I did. I'd see the glint of blue from a robin's egg that had broken, and that would be like this, like a jewel. Or I'd see these crocuses pop up, and from when they weren't there the day before, and it was kind of magic to a child. And so I really enjoyed that. And then when I was about 10, a golf course decided to build a golf course right in our backyard. So I realized all of a sudden that it wasn't all mine to play in. They put a big chain link fence up, and all of a sudden I'm looking, you can picture a 10-year-old boy kind of going like this, saying, well, that used to be mine, how come it's yours? And so I think that planted some seeds anyway about being an environmentalist. But you can see here with my family, we've had a lot of, I think in the time of COVID as well, I think we spent even more time in nature, as Jane was saying, to find solace. And so my boys, Sandy and Theo, there in West Virginia, my son Sandy, after he graduated, and we were in Zion. You can see my legs there on the bottom left, where I'm laying there with the boys after a killer hike up in Colorado, and then my wife Carol, and to point that you don't have to go really far. So we're at a garden here, and it's very close by. So these are the ways you can get inspired by nature. And I just wanted to leave you with 2 final thoughts before we kind of open it up for questions. One is going back to the point I just made. I've thought a lot about this, and I think mindfulness and attention. Nature teaches us to kind of pay attention. And these pictures are ones that I've taken. One is in my front yard with a goldfinch on some of the flowers, and then one is this beautiful bark pattern that when I stopped and looked at that, I thought, wow, that's a really cool pattern, and how did that get made? And and again, going back to being a lantern again, I think that whenever I get into nature, I get back into that mindset, and I think it makes you kind of it gets you out of your skin and gets you out of your troubles. And I think that's why I think I would recommend to anybody, if you're struggling with some daily lives, just drop down your stresses and put it aside and put your phone away and get out into nature. And this is a fantastic quote. I won't read the entire thing, from Annie Dillard. If you don't know her, she's a really good writer on nature. And it's just being attentive to nature and being patient and waiting for it to speak to you. And I think this is something that has given me solace in a lot of tough times in my life. And then the second thing I think nature teaches us is humility. It's kind of related to that, but whenever you're struggling with things, you get out there and you realize how, so here is an example. I was just recently in the Redwood Forest with a bunch of high school friends. We had a reunion there, and you can see, obviously, I'm a tree hugger, so you see me in the middle there, but then that other tree with my friends and I, it was called the Boy Scout tree, and we went around it, and there was a tiny plaque that was kind of buried up high, and we couldn't see it very much. We finally looked up online, and while we were there, and that tree was 2,500 years old. And you think, okay, this has been around here for a while, and it's it's survived so much. And walking in that space, but anywhere in nature, you kind of remind it's not just about you. It's about this much larger ecosystem, much larger world that we live in. And so, again, it's another sort of lesson that I find very spiritual, is being in nature and getting that humility every time I'm there. And this is another, just a poem as well. I recommend, if you haven't discovered Mary Oliver. She's a fantastic poet, but also does a lot of writing about nature and about, while things are troublesome, still the wild geese will be migrating every year, and they'll teach you to be, to kind of reconnect with that part of yourself. So that was my personal story. So it's less about what the church is doing, but why I'm doing this. And I don't know how this works in terms of Zoom and online and questions, but maybe we can start if people have any questions or ideas from the audience here, and then we can go to the online. And I have the microphone if you have a question. Or to share, yeah, please, or just to share what you're doing, or I know we have a couple of other Eco Action Team members here as well. If not, Anne, please.
Thanks, Tom. Sorry, go up. Sorry? Oh, okay. Okay. Well, first, thank you, Tom and Lydia and Jane and Lizzie, for this wonderful presentation. I've been convinced for a long time that I want to do something in my backyard, but I have no clue how to do it, how to even begin to create a small space in my yard where I could put in the native plants and the pollinators. And I was wondering if there's some way here at church that the Eco Action Team could help people like me. I don't have a huge budget, probably won't hire a contractor, but I could do it myself with the right advice and guidance. And I think you all have the resources, or could point us in the right direction, or even offer advice. Is that something we could do as a project at some point?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And Lizzie and I have talked about, as like part of the garden project, to you, like to Lizzie wants, always wants outreach to be a big part of that, but just even having like templates for what could you plant if you have a small amount of space, what are really good plants, if you have sun, if you have shade, if it's moist, if it's dry. So working with the Audubon at Woodend, they really want to help us with that, because they're doing kind of similar work to sort of help us design templates that would help people plant. So I love that idea.
Anybody else? If not, are we allowed to go online? How does that work with the, here, yes. Yeah, if anybody online has a question, just raise your hand, and then Sari can call on you. I see a bunch of faces here. Tim. Oh, sure. Yeah. So Tim was just saying, so he talked a lot about energy efficiency at the church, and we continue to do things to replace lights and we talked about the heating and cooling and things like that. To supplement that, we're always going to use some energy. We decided to look into green energy. So, Maryland and a lot of states around now offer consumers the choice of purchasing green electricity from different providers. And we looked online for different ones that were reputable, were credible in terms of the claims they were making. And we ended up going with one, and I'm actually forgetting the name now, but we can send it. I'm going to write a Crossroads article about this next month. That is allowing us, we're doing, now essentially we're 100% green electricity from the church. It's using wind power and I think some other smaller hydro and some other sources that are nearby. So it's supporting local renewables. And then the best part of all is it's actually saving us money. Which is fascinating to think about. In the old days, you always thought it was going to be more expensive, but it's a variable rate, and so right now we estimate about a $1,500 a year savings in terms of what this green energy will offer us. So I'm going to write an article on this for Crossroads because I want to make sure that everybody in the community knows you can do this at your own home as well, and maybe possibly save money. So, question?
Yes, I was just going over my bills and my electric bills, and I am paying for clean energy. But it seems like it's added on to the bill that I have. So it's like, however that is generated. And I would be interested to find out how I can correct that.
I think I can help on that. I think all power at the moment, they say that there's, somewhere 5-10% is coming from clean sources. Last year, I don't think it's quite as good a deal as the church got, but I decided I was willing to pay a little more to feel better about energy consumption. And so I think once a year you need to watch for a mailing that will offer that, or you can proactively call and say, when is the next offering? I think Pepco is the provider of the lines and things into my home, and I pay them separately. But Washington Gas is actually my electrical provider. And for the last couple of years, as the renewal period comes up, they've had a menu of options. Do you want to go 50% clean energy, 100%? And so I finally decided, yep, now's the time. And it was only a cent or a fraction of a cent more per kilowatt hour. So, yeah.
Well, I think, Lizzie, what you're saying too is, to be honest, your utility, they are doing a little green marketing on their side, but it's not, I don't want to say it's dishonest, but I think every utility says, oh, you're supporting green energy, but as Tim said, it's usually 5, 10, 15% of their full mix. A lot of it's still going to be coal or nuclear or natural gas. And so what we have to do is you have to be proactive to say, I want 100% to be renewables instead of just the small fraction. And by doing that, you can ask Pepco, what do you offer? And they might offer some sort of rate that's a little bit higher for 100%. But then we actually went to an external provider and switched providers at the end of the contract. So you can do that too. As Tim was saying, when your contract comes up, you can, instead of renewing a Pepco, you can find the other ones that offer 100% renewables. And I'm going to write a little article and give you some links in that, or I'm also happy to send you some of the things I found in terms of what's available in this area. Well, great. That's great to see you doing that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, no, it's good to have that choice. So. Anything online, Sari, from? Okay. Okay, well, I think unless there's anything else, we can wrap up. Really nice to have you all here and listening, and I hope we inspired you, and obviously do things in your own life, but if you want to be part of this team, it's a growing team. We've got some new members, and we meet every Thursday virtually. Not every Thursday, once a month, sorry. Every first Thursday of the month, we meet for an hour, and we had a picnic in the park just before it got chilly. Sharing vegetarian recipes, so we're doing a lot of stuff, offline and online, but we'd love to have you join, so let Jane or I know if you'd like to get involved. But thanks for hearing our stories today. Thanks.